The quiet hills outside Tehran were supposed to be safe. But on the afternoon of November 27, 2020, in the small town of Absard, silence shattered. A black Nissan sedan rolled down the road. Inside sat Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, Iran's most protected scientist, his wife beside him, and armed guards close behind. Then, from nowhere, came the crack of gunfire. Not from men, but from a machine. Bullets tore through the windshield with robotic precision. Fakhrizadeh's bodyguards scrambled, returning fire, but there was no enemy to shoot back. The weapon, hidden in a parked truck, was firing on its own, locked on target. Within seconds, the man Tehran called the heart of its defense research was mortally wounded. Before I tell you what happened next, if you've been holding your breath like I have, make sure you're subscribed. These declassified files drop every day. And tell me, where are you watching from? And what time is it there right now? Because what you're about to hear is the story of a hunt that began more than a decade earlier. For years, the name Mohsen Fakhrizadeh had echoed in Israel's most secret intelligence rooms, a name whispered with the same caution as nuclear weapon. He was more than a scientist. To the outside world, he was a professor, a quiet academic in Iran's Ministry of Defense. But inside intelligence circles, Fakhrizadeh was believed to be the architect of Iran as hidden nuclear ambitions, the man who had the knowledge, the network, and the influence to turn theory into capability. According to several independent intelligence assessments from regional agencies and UN nuclear observers, Fakhrizadeh had led Project Ahmad, Iran's pre-2003 research effort into weaponizing uranium. While Iran insisted that its nuclear program was peaceful, Western and Israeli analysts saw Fakhrizadeh as the father of its military research arm. For Mossad, that made him a ghost they could never stop chasing. The story begins years before his death. In the early 2000s, when Israel first discovered how deeply Iran's Quds Force and Defense Ministry were funding parallel scientific projects, Mossad began building a web of surveillance, intercepting academic emails, tracking international conferences, identifying scientists in physics and metallurgy who were linked to Fakhrizadeh. Several Iranian nuclear scientists had already been killed in mysterious attacks. Masoud Ali Mohammadi in 2010, Majid Shahriari, Mostafa Ahmadi Roshan, and Dariush Rezaeinejad in the years that followed. Tehran always blamed Mossad. Each hit was surgical: a magnetic bomb under a car, a silenced pistol on a motorcycle, a sniper attack on a quiet street. But through it all, Fakhrizadeh survived. He was the one Mossad couldn't reach. Protected by bodyguards, his movements classified, his car convoys unpredictable. He became known as the Invisible Man of Natanz. Inside Tel Aviv's intelligence corridors, the frustration grew. Every satellite photo, every intercepted call led them closer, but never close enough. Fakhrizadeh was the brain behind the structure, not the man in the lab coat. Removing him would mean more than halting progress. It would send a message that no level of protection was safe. By 2018, Mossad pulled off one of its boldest heists in history, stealing over 50,000 documents from Iran's secret nuclear archive in Tehran. Among those documents, according to multiple intelligence leaks, were reports, blueprints, and personal notes referencing Fakhrizadeh. His name appeared again and again. Dr. Mohsen, the professor, project leader. That operation, according to insiders, changed everything. For the first time, Israel had tangible proof of how central he was. After that, Mossad's target list narrowed down to one name. But hunting him wasn't simple. He was constantly surrounded by IRGC security, his route to work classified, and his presence shielded by decoys. Mossad couldn't simply send an agent. Iran's counterintelligence was on high alert. So in late 2019, a new strategy began to form, one that would eliminate human risk entirely: an automated assassination. It sounded impossible, like science fiction. But intelligence leaks later described how the concept took shape. An advanced machine gun system, remotely operated, equipped with facial recognition AI, and capable of identifying its target within milliseconds. Mounted on a pickup truck, it would fire bursts controlled by satellite, precise enough to avoid collateral damage, deadly enough to kill in seconds. In Tel Aviv, this operation was codenamed Cloud Shadow. In Tehran, they would later call it the Ghost Gun. In the months before November 2020, reports suggest Mossad had smuggled pieces of this weapon into Iran, disguised as industrial machinery. Locals in Absard would later recall seeing new construction and unknown workers along the road. By the time Fakhrizadeh's convoy approached, the truck was already there, parked on the roadside, silent, waiting. At 2:15 p.m., the convoy slowed near a speed bump. In that instant, the AI system activated. Through satellite relay, an operator, possibly hundreds of miles away, confirmed visual identification. The machine locked onto Fakhrizadeh's face and opened fire. Within seconds, it was over. His wife survived. His guards were unharmed. Only Fakhrizadeh was hit, exactly 12 rounds to the upper body. Iranian investigators later said the weapon had self-destructed after the attack. Fragments of steel and circuits were found at the scene, but no operatives, no cameras, no witnesses. The entire operation had been carried out remotely. For Tehran, it was more than an assassination. It was humiliation. Their most guarded man killed inside their borders by an invisible hand. That day, Iranian media vowed revenge. The Revolutionary Guards swore that the perpetrators will face divine punishment. But deep inside Iran's intelligence command, the realization settled in. This wasn't just a strike. It was a message. The world first heard of the attack through a single breaking alert from Iranian state media. A scientist has been assassinated east of Tehran. No name, no details, just that one chilling line. Within hours, the identity was confirmed. Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, head of Iran's Organization of Defensive Innovation and Research, was dead. By nightfall, Tehran was in mourning, and Tel Aviv was silent. But behind that silence, something else was happening. A new chapter in covert warfare. Because this wasn't a traditional assassination. It was the world's first AI-assisted targeted killing, known to be carried out beyond the battlefield. Before we go deeper, if this story has already blown your mind, pause for a second. Subscribe, because what comes next, how a machine pulled off what a team of agents couldn't, will change how you see modern espionage forever. Now, let's rewind. Intelligence gathered from multiple sources, including later Iranian and international investigations, paints a meticulous picture of what happened that day. Weeks before the attack, an imported blue Nissan pickup appeared in Absard, a small, quiet town outside Tehran, where Fakhrizadeh had a vacation home. Locals thought it belonged to construction workers or a water delivery company. In reality, the truck's frame hid something that looked like a movie prop, a Belgian-made FN MAG machine gun, attached to a complex robotic rig. According to Iranian officials, the weapon was operated remotely via satellite connection, reportedly using Israel's own Eitan military communication network, though Mossad never confirmed this. The gun had been modified to fire in controlled bursts, guided by AI-based facial recognition software. Independent defense analysts later noted something even more remarkable. The gun was equipped with motion stabilizers, similar to those used in fighter jets, allowing it to remain accurate even under recoil. Hidden under the truck's cargo canopy, the weapon could detect, identify, and shoot its target within seconds, without a single agent on site. So, how did this setup even reach Iranian soil? Several independent sources, including a detailed New York Times investigation in 2021, reported that Mossad had smuggled the weapon in parts, disguised as industrial equipment. Each piece entered Iran separately, over months, through covert networks used by Iranian smugglers unaware of what they were transporting. Once all components were inside, Mossad reportedly recruited a small team of local operatives, not Israelis, but regional assets paid to assemble the system. According to one account, even they didn't know its true purpose. The final system, weighing nearly a ton, was assembled in Absard inside the pickup. Its brain, an AI guidance computer, had been trained on hundreds of photos of Fakhrizadeh. Its eyes, a high-resolution camera, were linked to the AI system via encrypted satellite feed. Its hands, a robotic trigger system, could deliver precision bursts without human error. It was Mossad's ultimate solution to one of its greatest challenges: eliminate the most guarded man in Iran without risking agents on the ground. November 27, 2020. A clear afternoon. At 2:10 p.m., Fakhrizadeh's black Nissan sedan left the highway, heading toward his villa. He wasn't using his armored vehicle that day, something his security team would regret forever. He was accompanied by a small convoy, 2 protection cars in front, 2 behind. They slowed down at a speed bump, right beside the truck. At 2:14 p.m., the AI system locked onto his face. The operator, reportedly watching from hundreds of kilometers away, confirmed the target. A second later, the gun opened fire. 12 bullets ripped through the car in rapid succession. One struck Fakhrizadeh in the spine. Another shattered his shoulder. As the car drifted to a halt, his wife screamed, untouched. The AI had filtered her out in real time. Iranian forensic reports later stated that no bullets hit anyone else, an indication of the system's accuracy. The truck then detonated, destroying the gun and any trace of its internal systems. Within an hour, Iranian intelligence and the Revolutionary Guards were on the scene. They found pieces of a destroyed pickup, shell casings, and fragments of a remote-controlled system. There were no footprints, no gunmen, no escape vehicles. One investigator called it a ghost attack by a machine. Iran's foreign minister at the time, Javad Zarif, accused Israel directly. He called the attack a clear act of state terrorism. Iran's president, Hassan Rouhani, vowed revenge, saying the scientist's death would not stop the nation's scientific progress. But within Iran's intelligence circles, a question lingered. How had Mossad penetrated so deep, in such a highly surveilled zone? In the months that followed, fragments of information emerged. Leaked sources close to Western intelligence confirmed Mossad's role, saying the weapon had been designed and tested outside Iran, with U.S. intelligence awareness but no operational involvement. A 2021 New York Times report, citing multiple intelligence officials, claimed the operation used a specially modified Belgian FN MAG, operated by an AI-assisted satellite-controlled system built by Israel. The system's total weight, roughly 1 ton. The setup time, almost 8 months. And, most remarkably, not a single Mossad operative remained inside Iran when the trigger was pulled. That claim, while never officially confirmed, was later echoed by multiple independent security analysts in Lebanon, Turkey, and Pakistan, who viewed it as the moment artificial intelligence became an active weapon in modern espionage. In Tehran, Fakhrizadeh's funeral was broadcast live on state television. His casket was draped in Iran's flag, and senior military figures vowed retaliation. The supreme leader called him a martyr of science. But deep inside the Iranian military structure, the hit triggered chaos. Dozens of counterintelligence officers were reassigned. Internal purges followed. Arrests of suspected double agents, suspected leaks, and quiet dismissals within the Ministry of Defense. The IRGC launched its own investigation. According to insiders, they concluded the attack was aided by logistical negligence, meaning Mossad may have had help from inside the country, perhaps unknowingly. For Mossad, it was an operation years in the making, and it had worked perfectly. No agents lost, no traceable footprints, just one man, one target, gone. In the intelligence world, the assassination of Mohsen Fakhrizadeh became more than just another strike. It was a turning point, the dawn of machine-based covert warfare. For some, it was a triumph of precision and innovation. For others, a dangerous precedent, where assassinations could now be executed remotely, guided by algorithms without accountability. But for Mossad, it was something else entirely. A message. Even in the heart of Iran, the long arm of Israeli intelligence could reach you, and you might never see it coming. The sun had barely risen over Tehran when the first ripples of panic spread through Iran's security establishment. By morning, every intelligence branch, from the Ministry of Intelligence to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, was on high alert. Their top nuclear scientist was gone. And worse, no one could explain how. For a nation that prided itself on counter-espionage, the assassination of Mohsen Fakhrizadeh felt like a direct humiliation. The operation had happened in broad daylight, less than an hour from the capital, under the noses of Iran's most elite guards. Immediately after the attack, IRGC counterintelligence sealed off Absard. Forensic teams picked through the debris, recovering bullet fragments and pieces of electronic circuits melted by the explosion. Iranian investigators soon realized something chilling. There had been no human attackers. The recovered bullets matched those fired from a remotely operated high-caliber weapon, likely mounted on the destroyed Nissan truck. And when ballistic experts reconstructed the firing trajectory, they found every shot had come from the same angle: AI precision, not human reflexes. The implications were terrifying. If Mossad could kill a man in Iran without even being there, then nowhere was safe. In Tehran's intelligence offices, fear turned to fury. Dozens of officers were interrogated for leaks. At least 12 mid-ranking officials from the Ministry of Defense were either reassigned or detained for questioning. The internal investigation, named Operation Safeguard, became one of the largest security probes in Iranian history. According to later leaks from regional outlets, Iran's counterintelligence concluded that Mossad had received remote logistical assistance from local smugglers and informants, people who likely didn't know they were part of a global operation. But the revelation that Mossad's machine could operate inside Iran shook the establishment to its core. By early December 2020, Iran's leadership had made a decision. Revenge was inevitable. But it would not come in the form of open warfare. Instead, Tehran turned to its own covert arsenal: cyber units, proxy forces, and diplomatic pressure. Within 2 weeks of the assassination, several Israeli companies reported large-scale cyber attacks. Tel Aviv's water authority, 2 insurance firms, and even a small defense contractor experienced data breaches that Iranian-linked hackers later claimed responsibility for on underground forums. While none caused physical damage, the message was clear: Iran was striking back through the digital shadows. At the same time, pro-Iranian militias in Iraq began targeting sites tied to Western or Israeli interests. In late December, a rocket strike hit near the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. No casualties, but intelligence analysts suspected it was a symbolic retaliation, a warning from Tehran that it could respond on multiple fronts. While the public focus was on threats of revenge, a silent battle had already begun behind screens and firewalls. According to independent cybersecurity groups from Turkey and Singapore, in January 2021 alone, over 40 Israeli systems were probed or attacked, ranging from transportation grids to universities. Mossad's just weeks after Iran's attempted hacks, multiple industrial networks in Iran's Isfahan and Natanz provinces reported equipment failures and power anomalies. Unofficial sources described explosions at small facilities related to centrifuge components, the same kind of industrial sabotage that mirrored Israel's earlier Stuxnet operations. Neither side admitted involvement, but by spring 2021, Iran's own media outlets quietly acknowledged that a series of mysterious fires had broken out in facilities tied to the defense ministry. Behind the scenes, the covert tit-for-tat had escalated into a shadow cyber war, one fought without bombs or soldiers, only code, satellites, and silence. Internationally, the assassination complicated everything. The new U.S. administration under Joe Biden was considering re-entering the JCPOA nuclear deal, but Fakhrizadeh's killing hardened Tehran's stance. Iran's parliament passed a law limiting IAEA inspections and boosting uranium enrichment. To Israel, that was proof the operation had succeeded. It had disrupted Iran's timeline and reasserted deterrence. To Iran, it was justification to accelerate even faster, to ensure that no scientist's death could halt its program again. Middle Eastern analysts from Qatar and Turkey noted a subtle shift. The assassination didn't stop Iran's nuclear momentum. It only pushed it deeper underground, literally and strategically. The facilities that emerged later were buried deeper, shielded by new defense systems, and guarded with near-paranoid precision. Months later, new details surfaced from leaks published by investigative journalists in Beirut. According to them, Iran's Supreme National Security Council convened a top-secret meeting in January 2021, codenamed Project Shadow Dome. Its objective? Restructure Iran's intelligence network to counter Israeli infiltration. Under this project, dozens of new cyber specialists were recruited, many trained in China and Russia. The IRGC also began investing heavily in AI counter-surveillance, inspired ironically by the same kind of system that had been used to kill Fakhrizadeh. In Tehran's own words, "We will fight machines with machines." What happened after Fakhrizadeh's death wasn't just retaliation. It was the evolution of modern espionage. For Mossad, it was the perfect demonstration of reach, that no enemy, however protected, was beyond their technology. For Iran, it was an awakening, a realization that the future of warfare wouldn't be fought by armies, but by intelligence, algorithms, and shadows. In the months that followed, Israeli and Iranian intelligence agencies clashed indirectly across the region. In Syria, Lebanon, Azerbaijan, and even Europe, assassinations, cyber attacks, data leaks, all pieces of the same invisible war that began on that quiet road in Absard. Amid all the geopolitics and machinery, one thing often went unspoken: the human story. Fakhrizadeh's family remained under protection for years after his death. His students and colleagues faced heavy scrutiny. Some disappeared from public view altogether. For the scientists who continued his work, his death became both a symbol and a warning. A symbol of defiance, that Iran would keep advancing despite loss, and a warning that anyone could be next. Months later, an Iranian journalist asked a senior official if the country had identified the perpetrators. His answer was cryptic. "We know who sent the bullet, but the trigger was not pulled by human hands. That line summed up everything about the Fakhrizadeh assassination. It wasn't just about one man. It was about the future of covert warfare, where human hands might no longer be needed at all. When the dust settled over Absard, Iran was left with more than the wreckage of a destroyed car. It was left staring into a new kind of warfare. For decades, assassinations had been personal, human, and physical. But what happened on November 27, 2020, rewrote the entire rulebook. No agents on the ground, no trails, no witnesses, just a machine, a signal, and the end of one of the most protected men in the Middle East. That day, the world crossed an invisible line, and both Tehran and Tel Aviv knew it. In the months following the killing, international analysts began to piece together what had really happened. Leaked intelligence and investigative reporting described the weapon as a satellite-controlled FN MAG machine gun, retrofitted with AI facial recognition and a sophisticated stabilization system that compensated for the satellite delay. It fired only when Fakhrizadeh's face appeared in frame, the camera scanning his features, calculating, confirming, and shooting within milliseconds. There were no stray bullets. Even his wife, sitting inches away, was untouched. It was cold, efficient, and nearly flawless. For Mossad, it was the culmination of decades of research, the perfect fusion of intelligence, robotics, and human precision. For Iran, it was a nightmare brought to life. Proof that their enemies could strike anywhere, anytime, with technology that ignored borders. Independent security researchers in Asia later noted that the operation demonstrated the fourth stage of modern espionage, autonomous warfare. From Stuxnet's code to Fakhrizadeh's AI gun, Israel had moved from hacking computers to assassinating with algorithms. Iran's leadership understood that avenging Fakhrizadeh wasn't just about retribution, it was about adaptation. By 2021, Tehran's defense ministry began restructuring its intelligence and cyber branches under a new doctrine: digital resistance. Instead of chasing spies, they built AI defense units, integrated with Russia's cybersecurity advisors and China's surveillance engineers. Their objective was simple: to make Iran's infrastructure impenetrable, and to develop their own versions of AI-based defense systems. At the same time, Iran's nuclear program quietly shifted deeper underground. Literally, satellite images later revealed new tunnels and hardened bunkers south of Natanz and Fordo, areas inaccessible to drone or missile strikes. Every layer of defense was redesigned with one question in mind: how do you fight an enemy you can't see? Beyond Iran, the assassination sent tremors through every intelligence agency in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Turkey, and even Egypt began investing in AI surveillance and anti-drone countermeasures. But no one was more shaken than Iran's allies in Hezbollah and Syria. For them, Fakhrizadeh's death wasn't just an attack on Iran. It was a message. Mossad could reach anyone, anywhere. Hezbollah's internal communications, later leaked by regional reporters, revealed new protocols: encrypted communication lines, decoy convoys, and blackout travel procedures for senior officers. Everyone, it seemed, was preparing for a future where assassinations didn't require assassins. In Tel Aviv, inside Mossad's operational command known as the Pit, the aftermath was quieter. The mission had been a success, but it also set a dangerous precedent. Privately, some within Israel's defense establishment worried that the technology they'd pioneered might soon come back to haunt them. Autonomous weapons, once unleashed, couldn't be monopolized forever. One retired Israeli officer, quoted anonymously years later, admitted, "We created a weapon that doesn't need a soldier. One day, our enemies will have the same." The remark was prophetic. By 2023, reports surfaced that Iranian engineers were testing AI-driven drone swarms, designed to overwhelm missile defenses and mimic Mossad ES automation methods. The hunter had become the inspiration for the hunted. The Fakhrizadeh assassination also triggered an unprecedented debate at the United Nations. Should autonomous weapons, machines that decide when to kill, be banned under international law? European diplomats pushed for new oversight mechanisms, citing the moral risk of algorithmic assassination. Israel refused to comment. Iran condemned it as state terrorism through machines. But behind the speeches and outrage, every major power, the US, Russia, China, took notes. Because if Mossad could assassinate one of the world's most protected scientists without deploying a single agent, then the future of warfare had just been rewritten. Months after the assassination, an Iranian cyber unit reportedly intercepted a signal fragment, an encrypted satellite ping believed to have been part of the operation. It contained no data, no words, only a timestamp. 13/28/43, the exact moment Fakhrizadeh's convoy came under fire. Some in Tehran claimed it was Mossad's final taunt, a digital signature left intentionally. Others dismissed it as coincidence. But for Iran's intelligence chiefs, it was a reminder that technology could now leave ghosts, invisible traces that haunted the battlefield long after the smoke cleared. In Iran, Fakhrizadeh's funeral drew thousands. He was buried with honors, his coffin draped in the national flag, his portrait beside that of other martyrs of science. But for those who studied him, he remained an enigma, both scientist and strategist, revered and feared. Even after his death, his influence lingered. The next generation of Iranian scientists worked harder, deeper underground, driven by the same ambition: to make Iran self-reliant in its defense and nuclear technology. Ironically, the very act meant to end his legacy may have ensured its survival. From the streets of Absard to the servers of Tel Aviv, one truth became undeniable. The age of human spies was fading. The assassins of tomorrow wouldn't carry pistols or passports. They'd carry code, satellites, and silence. The assassination of Mohsen Fakhrizadeh wasn't just Mossad's most daring mission, it was the dawn of an era where machines make the kill and humans take the credit. And somewhere, in the cold hum of servers and algorithms, the next operation is already being written. If you thought this mission was wild, wait until you hear what Mossad did next. The next file we're opening isn't about a man. It's about a country under digital siege. Subscribe so you don't miss the next classified story. Dropping tomorrow on Spy Wars Declassified.